Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing NCIS Origins Season 1, Episode 17. So before I get into the episode, just want to say thank you to everybody who likes my videos, subscribes to my channel, leaves me comments. I appreciate it so much. If you have any comments or discussion about this episode, you can leave it below. I enjoy interacting with everybody. So, getting into this episode, you kind of have previously what happened last week, where they talk about the last episode with Jameson, aka Bugs, right? The real killer Sandman, they call him, is still out there. And then they also show a flashback about how Wheeler got upset about Frank's contacting his FBI contact, Oakley. Only Wheeler contacts him. That's his contact. So I'm like, okay, they're showing that in the clip. That must have some significance throughout the show, right? So it starts out the show with Wheeler at home with his wife and son. And you kind of see that his son's a teenager and he's gotten into some trouble and he just seems kind of, frustrated and angry. So you're like, okay, that's probably going to come into play because if he's having trouble in school, he really wants to go to this Guns N' Roses concert. And Wheeler promised that they'd go. And then with him getting in trouble with school and the law, right, because he got arrested, which we found out from last episode, he's not taking him to the concert. So I think he's still a little upset about that, but he's also acting out. So it kind of leads you to believe we're going to figure that out, hopefully, in this episode. So you see when they go to visit the Emmy that, the Sandman is definitely who killed Bugs. And you have another guest appearance from the Lady Emmy, which I just love. She just has that personality, for a medical examiner. She's just peppy. I really enjoy any scene she's in. So I'm glad she kind of had a couple minutes there in a scene. Anytime they can bring in the guest Lady Emmy, she's a hoot. I love her. The actress does a great job with her. So that made me smile to kind of see her for a few minutes. And then you see Wheeler is in a meeting with his boss at headquarters, and the boss is basically telling him, like, look, I wanted to fire you, but the headquarters says it would be a bad look, bad for PR. So I'm not going to fire you, but you are going to have a joint task force investigation with the FBI into Sandman, right? So meanwhile, the whole time he's having this discussion with his boss, his hand is bleeding even more. So I told you at the beginning, you saw the Wheeler, his wife and son at his house. Well, his son actually gets a poker, from the fireplace and actually slices his hand. I don't think he did it on purpose. He was just lashing out and Wheeler was trying to stop him. So he cut his hand. So he has a band-aid on it, right? But it's bleeding badly in this meeting. So he kind of puts it down. It starts bleeding on the couch in his boss's office. He puts it in his pocket and then his pocket starts bleeding through. So, I mean, you can tell Wheeler's trying to focus. I mean, his boss is basically saying, you should be fired, but my, head honchos don't want you fired yet. So you're going to be in a joint task force operation to kind of find out who the Sandman is. And it's like he's listening, but at the same time, he's trying to cover up his hand. So I feel like, I can kind of understand where really Wheeler is coming from. He gets back to his office. He sees a suit on his chair, first aid kit right on his desk. Again, Mary Jo. Love Mary Jo. She's probably one of my favorite characters. I just love her so much. We all need a Mary Jo in our life. And, she saw that he had a band-aid and was cut. You want to talk about it? No. but I'm going to provide for you. I know you're going to need a new suit. I know you're going to need band-aids. So I just love Mary Jo. So, you know, they're pulling everything out of the case. And remember, they have to share everything with the FBI. And the FBI is running point, right? So Oakley is actually the person who's in charge, which is Wheeler's contact, right? So he basically tells Franks, like, you report to him. So you can tell he's not happy with Franks, but Franks listens to orders and he's going to report to Oakley. So Gibbs and the lab assistant Phil are trying to put this shredded paper back together. Because remember, Gibbs remembers seeing Operation Sundown in the shredder. So they go through and try to find it. Basement Dalton comes up and helps. And we find out, we know who shredded the document. It turns out it's the new girl, Gail. She's the one who shredded the document. And then they question her and is like, hey, how did you shred this? And kind of questioning her. And Mary Jo defends her, like, hey, if the paperwork was in the box to be shredded, she shredded it. Like, I love Mary Jo coming up, to defend Gail. Wheeler basically tells him about Oakley. And then, of course, when the FBI comes in, they assign everybody jobs, right? Gibbs's job is to listen to all of Vera's tapes over and over again. Basically, listen to anything that maybe Vera missed or maybe something that's important. So Gibbs is downstairs in the basement just listening to video with headphones over and over and over again. Randy and Layla go to visit the Bugs's uncle, or I'm sorry, not Buzz's uncle. One of the bosses, or Cruz's, sorry. Cruz's, Melanie died, Cruz died, right? We thought Bugs did it. We find out, no, it was the salmon and the salmon killed Bugs. So Cruz's uncle, kind of weird. He's the one who said the boss, so I apologize. Layla and Randy go to see Cruz's uncle. He's shirtless. He's not wearing a shirt. He's kind of weird, but he does tell them that the boss was missing the tip of his finger. So as weird as he was, he does actually give them a little bit of information. Nothing more than that. Not really a name or anything, but now they're like, okay, if we have somebody in mind, we can see if they're missing the tip of their finger. And then I kind of mentioned Wheeler's hand bleeding. So throughout the episode, his son gets in trouble again. The arresting officer finds out that, Wheeler is his dad. So they deliver him to NIS. After talking to Wheeler's wife, she's like, look, I'm done. I take care of him all the time. He's coming to see you. So Wheeler is he's in a tough spot, right? His boss basically said, I wanted to fire you, but headquarters told me not to. He's got the FBI in there breathing breathing down his back, kind of overseeing everything, analyzing everything. And now his son is coming in with the police officer, right, to be handed to him. So Wheeler's kind of dealing with a lot. There's a scene with Frank's and Wheeler's son Jason in the break room. Frank's makes him a sandwich, has a little pep talk with them, which I thought was a great scene because, you really only see the soft side of Frank's when he's with Tish. Now that he's not with Tish, you don't really see that soft side. And he kind of had a nice kind of conversation with Jason, Wheeler's son. So I liked that. He'll have a conversation with his dad later. But you find out more about the operation. You find out that Operation Sundown was a protection detail of a person that was giving them intel. So the protection detail was the person who was giving the intel, his wife, and son. So the protection detail was 3 people. They had 4 snipers assigned to protect them, and the boss pulled off the snipers from the operation to be hellfighters to fight the Ulrich fires. So the family was completely unprotected, and then of course they get murdered. So they never really reported that they were hellfighters or fighting the Ulrich. They were all kind of still protecting this family, and then of course, right, since nobody was protecting them, they get killed, and there's photos of the family just being slaughtered, which is really sad. So Gibbs is again in the basement listening to these videos over and over again. And I wasn't sure what he was going to hear because we've seen in previous episode, Vera listens to everything, writes everything down. So I'm like, what is Gibbs going to pick up that Vera didn't? But it had to lead to something, right? Because they keep showing them listening to these tapes. And Gibbs goes to a support group and he hears something on one of the tapes, victory and perseverance. And it's the same quote that he heard in the support group. So it's almost like a bell goes off, an alarm. He's like, okay, it triggers something. So he goes to the mentor of the support group, kind of like, the person in charge when they have these group therapy sessions. And he starts snooping around, finds a locked door, opens it, and there's, photos all over the wall with information. And obviously he catches Gibbs in the room, dun dun dun, you knew that was coming. And then he has flashbacks of this mentor in NIS, kind of, telling them about the support group, talking to them about various people. So you're kind of thinking, okay, he must have been the one that planted the listening devices, which I'm so glad they added that 3 seconds of him remembering that, because I'm wondering from last episode, like, who planted the listening devices? Because remember, they questioned Roger and Roger didn't do it. So we figured it might have been Sandman, but who's Sandman? So I'm glad they kind of gave us that answer, because I wanted to know who it was too, how they get in the building, how long have they been having listening devices there. So, he fights with Gibbs. Obviously, you have that fight scene, and he's kind of bleeding out because Gibbs had to stab him. They're fighting for their life, right? And as he's bleeding out, he's saying, hey, snipers are protectors. We're not killers. And Gibbs goes, we are killers too. So I kind of love that, because I feel like that's genuine, right? I personally don't know anybody who's been a sniper in the military, but from seeing NCIS and seeing Gibbs for 22 years as Mark Harmon, like, I get it. You're protecting, but snipers are killers. That's what you do. So I get it. I understood when he was bleeding out, he was trying to kind of rationalize everything. Look, we were supposed to protect this family. We watched them every single day. We knew their routine. We knew what the wife did. We know what the son did. Like, they loved each other. They always hugged before they left the house. So, I mean, that's why he was like, we're protectors. So it doesn't excuse everything he did. I mean, he killed all those people, because you find out of the 4 snipers remaining, besides Bugs, 3 of them are dead. So they were able to find the last sniper, and they were able to protect him. But obviously, this guy that Gibbs found was probably going to go after him too. So he's killed 4 or 5 people. But it was kind of sad for him to kind of relive that with Gibbs as he's bleeding out and dying, like why he did what he did. So I always kind of want that closure. I'm not a fan of psychopaths, killing them or killing their whole family and then killing themselves. Like, no, I want to know why you did it, and I want you to have justice. I want you to face your crime, right? So I like that as he's bleeding out, he's kind of explaining himself. He doesn't admit to putting the listening devices in NIS, but I feel like since they showed that when Gibbs is having that flashback, that kind of answers my question. So then Wheeler's son, is sitting at the table and actually, talks to Wheeler and kind of has an honest conversation. And Jason is like, I want to be honest with you. I want to tell you what's eating at me. And right away, Wheeler kind of not chuckles, but smiles like, oh, you want to tell me what's eating at you? I'm all ears. So I feel like it was at that moment that he realized, and I was right because later he talks to Frank's. Jason using the term what's eating at you, that sounds like Frank's. That's got Frank's written all over it. So Wheeler must have realized that when his son said that. He's enjoying the open and honesty of his son, but he's also realizing that Frank's must have talked to him at some point. So they have a good talk. They're very honest with each other on why he was upset. And Wheeler, is honest with his son. Then he gets a phone call from Oakley about the case, and Jason gets upset and kind of walks away. And obviously, like I say, Frank Gibbs is, battling with this guy. He dies, but he's beat up too because he's wanting to kill Gibbs and Gibbs is fighting with him. So he has to go to the hospital to get checked out. And then you see, Layla and Randy and Gibbs. And Layla, says to Randy, go home, be with your family. I'll stay with Gibbs. They get a statement. After they get a statement, Layla decides to stay. So I'm sure people are like, oh, Layla's staying because she cares for Gibbs. I think she does. I think she cares deeply for Gibbs as a friend. She's concerned about him. Gibbs is very honest and a good person. So I feel like she cares for him very strongly as a friend. Maybe she feels romantically involved with them too. There's that flirtatious thing. But this particular scene, I don't think she's sending Sandy or Ray away so she can be alone with Gibbs. I think she's realizing, Randy, you have a family. You go home to him. I'll stay here with Gibbs. So I think it had a little bit of both. But it is nice, you can still see how Layla really cares for Gibbs. But you see that as a whole, right? And then Wheeler goes to his boss and tells him the truth. He's like, and you can kind of tell, like, look, his son was honest with them. He was honest with the son. So he kind of wants to be truthful all throughout. So he tells his boss the truth about paper, the shredded paper Operation Sundown. I put it in the shredded document pile. I thought we had the right guy with Bugs as the killer. I didn't think it was necessary. Yes, I got the information. I had it shredded. So he totally takes responsibility for everything. And the boss basically goes, okay, you're taking responsibility for it. Well, you're suspended indefinitely. So I guess this is meaning that Wheeler is fired, I guess, for telling the truth and kind of taking the blame for everything. But it doesn't seem like Wheeler is too upset, right? It's almost like he's relieved. Like, look, I'm taking the hit for everything. It was my fault. And then, the last scene of the show is when you see Wheeler at home. He's playing piano, and his son Jason comes up next to him and starts playing the piano with them. And it's Guns N' Roses' November Rain, which is an amazing song. If you have any Guns N' Roses fans out there, I love November Rain. And it starts playing, and they're playing it on the piano together. So I thought that was a really sweet moment that Wheeler was having with his son at the end of the episode. So, it definitely, there was also a scene with Franks and Wheeler before he went and told his boss that, it was all his fault. He kind of said, Franks, thanks for talking to my son, right? So he did acknowledge that. Next week, it looks really intense. It's the season finale. So I'm excited to see. I'm sure they have something up their sleeve for the finale, so I'm really excited to see what we have in store for us. But from the previews, it does definitely look intense. So I hope you enjoyed my review. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And until next week, I will see you then. Bye.